I'm Selena, and I'm a member of the Ward 1 steering committee, and maybe the other folks who are on the steering committee can just raise your hand. So if folks have any questions before, after, or during, feel free to flag one of us down. We have a pretty tight and packed agenda tonight, so I'm just going to ask folks to remember that as we're thinking about how to share our time and manage time together. So that might look like, if you've had a lot of opportunities to ask questions and share thoughts, that stepping back a little bit next time and letting someone else do it, and just so we can be respectful of our presenters who'll be joining us and not asking them to stay super late. So we tonight are going to have some time for introductions, speak out. We're going to hear a little bit from our school commissioners. We're going to hear from our city councilors. We're going to get a little bit of information about some work that's happening in the Community Development and Neighborhood Revitalization Committee to really clarify the city and NPA relationships. We are going to get a presentation on the Overdose Prevention Center project that's moving forward in Burlington. And we're going to have a little bit of time to hear about a proposed U-Haul storage facility project on Riverside Ave. So, hey, agenda. So we are going to start by just doing introductions and announcements around the room, just so we all know who each other are and where we're coming from. So this is time to just share who you are, maybe what street you live on. And then if you do have just a general announcement, I'm just going to keep going and you'll just tell me when and if it's time to use a mic. If you have a general announcement of, for example, an event that's coming up or just something simple you want folks to know about, you can share that when you introduce yourself. If you have something that you have an opinion about that you want to express an appreciation for the ward that's a little more robust, we'll save that for the next portion, which is our speak out portion of the evening. And we'll have a little bit of time for that free discourse, but may need to cut it a little bit short tonight just to stay on time. Sound good to everybody? All right. Gary, would you like to start us off with the introductions and we'll just kind of weave around?
Okay, Peter Lukowski, East Avenue, Burlington Co-housing.
The Orwell, North Prospect Street.
Judy Deb, Essex Center.
Breck Bowden, Brooks Avenue.
Linda Belton, Brooks Avenue.
Sharon Busher, East Avenue.
Sam Doherty, Colonial Square.
Rob Gutman, North Main Street.
Richard Hinyard, High Grove Court.
Allie Schachter, North William Street and East District City Councilor.
Hello, I'm Troy Hedrick. I live on East Avenue. I'm also one of the state reps for this district.
Carter Newby's over Riverside Ave, Ward 1 City Council.
Catherine Berman, North Street. Gretchen Platt, North Street.
Doug Boyden, neighbor and landowner to the hall proposed building.
What's been joining us?
Lucas Boyden with Dad. I'm Mark Devers at 140 Loomis.
I'm Angie Chapel from North Prospect Street.
Jonathan Chapel Sokol, same place, and I'm on the street.
Eric Barber,
I'm Dave Qualley, Nash Place. I have two quick announcements.
Yes, please.
Is it the right time?
It's perfect time.
Okay. Actually, the first one, I just want to announce that we are organizing some potluck dinners that are going to take place in Chumansky Park the last Thursday of June, July, and August. So everyone is welcome to come. We're going to have lots of food there. We're trying to arrange for entertainment. It's going to be rain or shine. It's potluck, so that if you'd like to bring a dish, we'd love to have it. But we're planning to have lots of food there as well. So I have some flyers about the event, and so I'll pass those around, staff links, and all the information is there. And the timing on it is, we'll be getting set up at 5:30, and it goes from 6 till it gets started. The other announcement, and this kind of relates to the meeting that we had last month, we were talking about gratitude for city employees that have had service here and have served us well. One of those people is Cindy White, who is the director of Burlington Parks and Recreation. She's retiring, and she's going to be retiring at the end of this month. In effort to have some gratitude for that, I put together a card with some gratitude. And if you know her or don't know her, but you'd like to add your name to the card, that would be wonderful. So I'll circulate that around with the clipboard that's got the flyers on it as well.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dave.
I am Tom Darrenthal. I live on Nash Place.
Sharon Long, Henry Street.
Gary Golden, Old East End.
Carol Livingston, Old East End on Calarco Court. I do have a quick announcement. Sophie Sauve, who works for the city, had asked for some time tonight and we weren't able to give it to her, but she is part of the city's open space planning. Jonathan made a flyer out here next to our clipboard where the agendas are as well as the resolution we're discussing. And it has a QR code for the website if you want to go on their website. The city's open space plan is going through its second round of outreach. And there's a survey about future strategies. It's open until June 27th. So the survey is open until June 27th. And they would really like your feedback, really like your input on it. So all the information about it is on a small paper that's on the table. Thank you.
Hey, Milo. Hi, introduce yourself.
Neil Grant visiting from Ward 2. And I wanted to just do a quick announcement about the police department's recruitment plan, if that's okay. Could you bring that up?
How quick is your communication?
I'm mindful of your agenda. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, microphone? Hello. Hey, excellent. As some of you know, I have previously made the rounds talking about community safety issues in our city, and I'm going to kind of start doing that again. There continues to be a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and lack of information. One of the things that we have not had is a recruitment plan from our police department. We're actually going to be carrying over $350,000. Yes, $350,000 of unused recruitment funds from this current fiscal year ending into the next. So now that we have new leadership in the department, we have an actual direction with regards to how we're going to be doing recruitment. From the city's website, there's a button that says agendas. When you click on agendas, you're able to pull up and access meetings where documentation is. And in the May 29th Public Safety Committee meeting, there is a link for the recruitment strategy. Chief Burke understands social media. Chief Burke understands how social media can be used to attract people and also use our own people. This is about 3 pages long. He talks about what the social media plan is. He talks about the different colleges that we would like to target. You're talking about going to each of the police officers and people who have other positions within the department and say, what school did you graduate from? What's your alma mater? We want you to visit these schools to talk about your work experience. As you know, with social media, you can track people who click on certain advertisements or announcements. You can then reach out to them again. They're going to be using the Beach and Parks program to recruit people. They're also using something, if you could scroll down for me. I found this really interesting. It's, they're talking about college community events. They're talking about ambassadors, career fairs, pop-ups. They are talking about tracking the metrics. And then this particular program is called the Vermont National Guard Prime Program, which has been available for a while, but we've never taken advantage of it. And it's where the program aligns soldiers, airmen, their dependents with civilian employers through direct communication. So it ensures that qualified service members interested in a company are guaranteed an interview by the employer, nothing more, but it helps get the word out. Sometimes people are concerned about recruiting the military because people are concerned about the militarization of our police, and that's something we're seeing right now in LA. But we've had good officers with military experience, so it's about the person. And this is going to be something that we haven't used to be consistently reaching out to qualified people. So I really wanted to bring that to your attention. I recommend that everybody read it. And also, when you can, follow public safety committee meetings. Chief Burke shows up, or we have a representative from the police department talking about all the changes. And thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I'll leave a couple of business cards if anybody wants to email any questions, and I can send you the direct links. Thank you.
Milo, if you send me the direct links, I'll put them in the minutes. Thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
that's my credit card. Where are my cards?
Thank you, Milo. That was really concise. I appreciate it. Well modeled. Can we just have you all, Anna Maria and Charlie, introduce yourselves, and then we'll go to Sophie and Cyril?
My name is Anne Marie Ann.
I'm Charlie G, CCTV, Time Meeting Television. Sorry about just something was very simple was not functioning, but now everything's good. So if you're going to use a microphone, a wireless, just make sure you turn it on. Thank you.
So moving forward, if you do speak, we're gonna pass around these wireless mics because will help to pick things up for all of us and as well as for the broadcast, right? All right, that's the plan. Can you make it possible for Cyril and Sophie online to introduce themselves?
They should be able to.
Cyril Slash at co-housing off East Avenue.
Thanks, Cyril. Sophie, do you want to say hi?
So request from Chase Street.
Perfect, thank you. All right, well, we're already starting to run behind, so we have time. Does anybody have like a really burning important thing you need to say during Speak Out? We've got Tom, Sharon, Judy, Richard. I'm gonna start with Judy since you're a guest and we haven't heard from you much in this space. Can we get Judy a mic? Somebody who's over there. Thank you so much. It's all right.
Thank you. I've been working with 6 capstone students from Riverside College and 1 from UVM this last semester. And they've been researching the air quality and the issues with landslides along Riverside Avenue. They've got together 2 amazing reports, and I would love to find someone to share them with. And I'm interested in the presentation later, because I have an intern in the summer who's continuing to work.
That's great. Thanks for letting us know about that. And maybe we can find a way to hear more from you about the project. How about Tom next?
Yeah, I just want to see how many people here have experienced no mail delivery. By show of hands, we on Nash Place, I don't think we've gotten mail in the neighborhood of like 7 or 8 days.
Yeah.
So that seems like that's a common occurrence.
Yeah, but we saw a mail person on our way here.
We got mail today.
They got mail today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Twice.
Do you have an update, Troy?
I just know that John Kane put out to our neighborhood that the carrier had quit and that they're still kind of getting back on the feet. You can go to the Pine Street station to do a pickup if you want, but they're slowly catching up. I've had mail delivered for 2 days in a row now.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you know someone who wants to be a letter carrier, there's a lot of opportunity there.
Thank you. I'm so glad to know it wasn't just me. Did you want to say something, Dave?
Yeah.
Well, Michael's
Just to add on, as part of that, I went down to the distribution center yesterday and asked them about that. They said that they're trying to hit the routes every once or twice a week. I think it's even slipping beyond that. I also asked directly about, can people go down to the distribution center and pick up their mail? The answer was no.
Oh.
The reason for that is because they dump all the mail into the root basket for the deliverer, so they can't sort out individuals. Like when you put your mail on hold, they set it aside, so that's why you can go to the distribution center and pick it up. So that's the story I got yesterday.
So.
Over to you, Sharon. You're up next.
So I didn't, there you go. I didn't want to talk about mail, but I think it depends on who you speak to. I've been going down to Pine Street and picking up my mail, and there's a line out the door of all the people picking up their mail. And so not only did our mail person quit, but her husband quit. And I learned also that because of the union, you're hired into a mail route and they can't make you do another route unless you are willing to do overtime. So I learned more about mail than I ever wanted to know, but they are working on it. And if you really need something, I needed something, they will find it for you if you go to Pine Street. If you can wait it out, then great. Anyways, I wanted to pick up with what Carol said about the open space protection plan. I'm really concerned about the fact that it's only going to be a survey online. I follow the conservation board. That legacy fund is really near and dear to me since I put it on the ballot in like 1990 or something like that, because it gives voice to open space and conservation of land. And developers have all the power, open space doesn't. And so there are changes being proposed, and they were supposed to make it around to all the NPAs. And I feel that I was going to ask about on this agenda, I was going to say for next year, could we bring them here? And I still think it would be relevant to bring them to find out the details of it, I think could warrant all of the residents saying, we'd like to vote again on this because it's how the funds are spent. And I think it's really critical that everybody have a chance to say, yes, I want to do it that way, or no, we don't. So anyways, that's my point. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Sharon. Richard, close us out here.
Thank you. So I was gonna say this, about half an hour ago, Catherine and I were walking on opposite sides of the road here, and the car went through the stop sign north and Prospect, 30 miles an hour, probably 35. No one in the city cares about this. It is absolutely epidemic in the city. The city council doesn't care, its mayor doesn't care, and it's police policy not to have it, not to have any traffic enforcement, and it's going to start killing people pretty darn soon. I'd also like to say, I was very, very sorry to see Susan Alden's obituary in the paper the other day, and Peter Alden and Susan were fantastic supporters of the Ward 1 NPA, and we'll miss her.
Yes, thank you. I hadn't heard that, and I really appreciate you letting us know. And I know we did talk about maybe bringing someone from the city to talk about just pedestrian safety and traffic enforcement.
We've got a few city councillors here, and they don't care.
Well, we're not gonna impute motive. We will be in September. We're gonna bring some guidelines in front of you all for consideration, but let's just try not to assume intent. I'm guessing, I believe our city councilors care about our safety. And you can ask them about it when we get an update from them tonight. Maybe you all would be willing to address that a little bit, and maybe we as the steering committee can also give some more opportunity for discussion about this with some city folks, but I'm not going to impute motive or uncaring, and I'd encourage the rest of us not to too, although I appreciate the ferocity and fierceness because it is a safety issue. All right, so moving on to school commission update. Are we ready to go? We've got a question.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were pointing to the screen. Do you all want to come up here? Are you gonna do it for us tonight?
I think
All right.
I'm being promoted.
Hi.
Demoted, huh? Um. Hi, everyone. I'm Matt Price. I'm the East Citrus School Commissioner. Sorry I'm running late. The summertime with kids at home and I think the days sort of just extend and bedtime just gets pushed further into. Yes. Great. Things happening in the school, the school district, the school year is wrapping up nicely. There are tons of different graduation events happening at the various schools. I attended 2 today. That was really wonderful. Things that are happening in the district are sort of kind of getting ready for end of year planning and sort of preparing for thinking about scheduling and budgeting for the upcoming year. The big thing that's happening at the moment is sort of the progress in the education reform bill, and that is sort of following that closely as I can. But I think that there's sort of new information that comes out, and there seems to be sort of a reluctance to let some of that information out. I think that now the Senate had agreed to let their version of the bill go and adopt the House version of the bill and move to a conference committee. The composition of that conference committee is still sort of being determined. I believe the latest iteration is that it's going to be half legislatures and half people with educational expertise. There seems to still be this very significant tension between how it is that we should provide support for independent schools while marrying that with public schools, with a lot of people in the state legislature being very strong proponents of independent schools and really wanting to have a lot more resources going away from our public school system towards the independent schools. How that will all shake out is unclear. Our state legislature, Martine Gulick, is also on the school board and has been very vocal in what she wants to see would be a stronger advocate for public education. How this all breaks out, we will see over the summer. It seems as though the state legislature is kind of moving slowly. The governor sort of says that he will not let them adjourn or go home for the season until they resolve this. There's some questions whether he can do that, whether they'll be able to get to a point. It all seems to be moving quite quickly, and we will see where this train car goes and know if we are still on the rails or not. That's the best I can say. I'll stop there. Questions? Yes.
Yeah, quick question, is it your impression that the new bill is going to be better for school children and less expensive?
I do not think it will be better for school children. Because it will probably mean overall less money per pupil for the school districts across the state. That's what it seems to be where everyone's looking for. So will it save? How will that savings translate down to the taxpayer? I don't know. I think that's everyone's guess at this point. It's all very unclear and murky.
Okay, thanks.
A rosy picture, indeed.
Happy summer.
Troy, do you want to add anything to that before we jump into hearing from city councilors?
I'm happy to make them mic.
Yes. Yeah, turn it on.
It's on.
I don't have a lot of detail for you. I think Matt probably has this right. The foundation formula will probably translate to less dollars per student. I'm kind of taking my cues from the district and from the advocate they have in the House to take a look at whatever finally comes out of the committee conference that's happening this week to let us know, the reps, whether or not this is good or bad for Burlington. As it stands, it's kind of a meh. It's fine. It's kind of the overall. So they're still working out a lot. For those of you who have time during the day, if you go to the Vermont Legislature webpage, you click on committees, you'll see a menu pop up, and on the far right, you're going to see committees of conference. If you click on that and scroll down, you're going to see a link to the live feed of those conference committee meetings. So these are 3 people from the House, 3 people from the Senate who are ironing out the final details. I watched them all day today. They didn't make a lot of progress. They're being incredibly cordial. The plan is to have a bill for us to look at I I wish I could promise you that that's gonna happen. I'll be very surprised if what comes out of this is anything too robust, but they're starting again tomorrow at 10 a.m. There is a live stream, so if you go to the Vermont Legislature page, it's pretty easy to find that link.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, any other school commissioner questions, details? Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, Ally and Carter, are you ready to share your council updates with us?
Yeah.
Sure. Hi, everyone. It feels like it's been a busy time in city council land, so we'll do our best to give you the rapid fire updates. We're gonna just kind of tag team a few things that are going on. I think the biggest thing, probably this month at least, is passing the fiscal year 26 budget. And so I believe I wasn't able to be at the last NPA meeting because I was at the budget presentation. I believe, Carter, you shared a bit then. We're still sort of figuring out, there's still some open ends with the budget, but we're hopefully getting close. And we are very hopeful tax decrease across the board when taking together the city budget with, or the municipal budget with the school budget. So we're crossing our fingers. It's looking really promising that that's going to be where we're able to land. Any specifics? There's a lot more we could say, I think. It will be going for final approval on the 23rd. We also have a meeting this coming Monday to keep working through it. Anything else?
No, I think this is a good summary. Happy to answer any questions on the budget. There is still ongoing discussion. One of the things that I haven't shared with my council colleagues, because I've run out of time this week, is pushing for, we had a conversation around RIFs and some of the hard decisions around reducing the amount of money we spend, in addition to the ways that we're raising new revenue in the city. And so I've put in an ask, and I think it will make it through, or some version, but that we take a look at department heads and division heads across the board in the general fund, and think about not pursuing any increase. They get a yearly built-in COLA, even though they're not part of a union, these positions, but they're some of the best paid. Vast majority of them are in the $100,000+ range. And so my ask is that we, in needing to find more revenue, either eliminate that COLA altogether for a year, or decrease that COLA increase, because I think it needs to be a shared burden as we're trying to figure out our finances as a city. And I think that seems reasonable enough in any RIF year. So I think that still waiting to see where that lands, but that's been my main focus on the budget. Otherwise, I do think, we've closed, I think, just under $4 million gap. So more work to do there, but yeah, I'm feeling relatively good about where we've landed, and trying to do it in a way that doesn't increase costs on folks. I can speak though to traffic enforcement. I can take questions about the budget. I can also address traffic enforcement. Yeah, sure.
We did it, sorry. Yes, Sharon Busher. Going forward, do you think that the city will look at the cost of adding positions? I'm not talking about the police department. I'm not talking about, but I think that what I've seen is the added cost with reorganization of departments. And I'm concerned that every time a position gets changed or reclassified, and that salary increases, that increases the cost of the budget and increases the cost of the retirement system that we also, it's a tax that we don't get to vote on, but it increases. And I don't see a lot of conversation about any of this, and I haven't for a long time. And it's very frustrating to know that that added cost, incremental, it's nickel and diming us into debt.
Yeah, what I have gotten, yes, I totally agree, and what I've gotten is a commitment from the mayor's office to look at that and dig in, because I think in this past the past 12 months, we have continued sort of business as usual in Board of Finance, and that has been my biggest takeaway so far as a member of the Board of Finance, is that these classes just seem, not that I don't want to pay people, like I want to pay people as well as possible. But particularly when we're talking about trying to maintain affordability, maintain a balanced budget, we ought to look at it holistically. My general impression is that they happen much more often, and we need to be more thoughtful about it.
Just look, one last thing to both of you. In the past, a consultant would say, this is what you need. We need to increase it because we're not competitive. And that's accurate, but what we used to do, and we haven't now, is look at right sizing it, right funding it for Burlington. So yes, an increase, but not the amount that is being proposed, because that's what we can afford. And that's what I'm really talking about. I'm not talking about cheating employees, but I'm talking about making it affordable.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I understand the logic behind the sort of market rate argument, which is we want to be competitive and we want to retain people, and if we lose folks who are really good at their job because the private market cannot beat us. What I've seen, and in talking with Councilor Kane, who's the predecessor from our caucus, and I don't know what's going on with this, but
You walk that.
That's that. It knows. But some of the reclasses, I don't think we were at risk of losing folks. In my humble opinion, I don't know all the dynamics. I'm not managing things day to day. And in general, we can't keep up with like market rate salaries. We can't. These are still some of the best paying. Like when you're talking about sort of middle management and management in the city, they are some of the best paid positions in the state, frankly, but certainly in our city and in our region. And so I want to see a refocus, and I think we're starting to do this on how do we develop talent internally, and how do we build a culture that's bringing folks up, and that's how we find new leaders, and that's how we're identifying folks versus that department head that we need to fill. We're going to go on this big national search, and there's some validity and fairness to that approach, but I think we've maybe over relied on it generally.
Yeah. The other piece that I'll add is that I would definitely say the sort of like approach right now at the city level and among, I think both the mayor's office and the city council is not one of feeling like we can just keep adding positions. I think there's, especially after the reductions this budget cycle, I think we're acutely aware of the cost of continuing to increase the personnel line in our city budget. And I think this is actually a really nice segue into some of what Carter and I were also going to report out on, which is that at the most recent city council meeting, we had a report on the CEDO and workforce development mergers, as well as the Department of Finance and Administration that's being formed, both of which are efforts to really right size our city departments, make sure they're as efficient as they can be. It involves some really tough decisions, but I think many of you have likely heard, and I'll let you share more, but that the Office of Community and Economic Development, CEDO, and Business and Workforce Development are merging going into fiscal year 26. And then we will officially be forming this Department of Finance and Administration, which means that a lot of like the financial roles, the accounting roles, the administrative roles each of which were sort of allocated to different city departments. Much of that work is now going to be centralized in one central finance and administration office, which will hopefully allow, especially as there are vacancies in positions, to streamline and be a lot more efficient in how these services are managed at the city level, so that we get away from continuing to sort of add people to each department. Particularly, it's an effort to deduplicate, to have more efficiencies, with the mindset of knowing that we have to start being really mindful of our budget. We grew very quickly in recent years, and we're now doing the hard work of right sizing. So just to say, I think there's a lot of awareness of what you're speaking about, and a real sensitivity in this moment to rethinking how we handle staff positions. I don't know if you want to speak any more about those mergers, or if there are any questions. Yeah. Yeah, share.
Yeah, I can share. No, just that. Yeah, we're reducing middle management as much as we can, and that's still painful and not a fun process. And I think the majority of the reduction in personnel and cuts in spending are not, the vast majority are not eliminating critical services that folks are relying on. And so that's been the goal, is trying to strike a better balance, and that is not fun. But I do think is necessary, and I do think is what the vast majority of folks in town have said that they want. So I think it's important we're doing that work. I can take questions on the budget if people have them. Yeah.
Mergers.
Or mergers.
It's like we have a lot of questions on that, and we still have more to share.
Are these all budget questions? Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
If I go.
You just go.
So. Okay, let's wait a little bit. I just wanted to say that I agree with Carter. I was a little surprised when I read that about what people were making in the city. I guess I'm really old and out of date for, but I always knew in the electric department, EV, that those salaries to me are like way up there. And then I was surprised to see our department heads also. And I don't think we have to compete with like California or New York City. I mean, we think our housing is expensive, but it is nothing compared to California or New York or any of those places, if that's what the council is talking about with matching. But I did want to also say that the 5% that was supposed, or 0.5% of the taxes for downtown that was going to be sunsetted, and it's not now. Because if that money can be used downtown, that we're all crying about, we need downtown. And if you go out to dinner and there's an extra 0.5%, I mean, you won't even notice it. Where, I don't know. So anyway, that's my opinion. I was disappointed to see that didn't go.
That
Because
actually might still be sunset. It's just postponing the final decision on that is all that we have done. So.
well, no, I thought that you were going to sunset it, and I think that's a bad idea. I think
Oh,
we
you think
need,
don't
yes,
sunset?
I think 0.5% if you go, I mean, I went out to dinner because of Jazz Fest. It's like nothing, change.
Yeah, we
So I do think that's a bad idea because we need the money downtown.
we are definitely, it's still very much on the table that will not be sunset.
Good, yeah, I don't think it should be. I
But a
think that-
decision has not been made, is all that's gonna clarify.
Okay, thanks.
Just a quick comment. I am one of those people that think that we pay too much in taxes, but I have to say that driving around the city in the last couple of weeks, and if you glance around and see how well used our parks are, they're filled with people. People are really enjoying parks, people of all ages. And so I would encourage you to continue to look and say, are we spending the money that we spend in the places where it will be best enjoyed or the most needy?
I have a bit of a self-serving question. Can you, first of all, the easy one is, will the NPA funding stay flat for the coming years at $24,000 in the budget for the NPAs? And the second is, how is the mergers and department contractions, how will that affect NPA service by CEDO? Will the NPA still be served by CEDO as is in ordinance, or is it going to move over to the finance department? Is it are we going to still have somebody who doesn't have another job helping us out? So that's what I wanted. Thank you.
I do want to get the traffic enforcement. I don't want to forget that. The NPA funding, I will double check. In reading through, I didn't catch a change, but I can't remember off the top of my head for 100% sure. So I'm almost, so we'll check that out. And then the NPA, so there's conversation around and my request that, what I've requested of the administration is that in the short term, NPA work through the city will continue to be in CEDO. There's conversation about moving it into this new DFA department.
What's this DFA?
Sorry,
stand for?
Department of Finance and Administration.
Yeah, that centralized like admin services, financial services.
And part of the reasoning is trying to get a uniform and sort of predictable public engagement process. Because right now each department has its own public engagement process. It's sort of project to project, department to department in terms of how we think about public engagement. So there's some conversation about moving the NPA over. I'm not convinced that that is a good idea or a bad idea. I want to understand more of the thinking behind it. And my request to the administration has been go sort of engage NPAs often and early in this conversation before any sort of final is made. And I think we're at least I would guess at least a year out. We're not talking in the next 12 months, is my understanding. So we're starting the conversation now, and I think that, I've gotten a commitment that they would engage NPAs on this, because it makes sense to do that. Yeah, traffic enforcement. So I do care about traffic enforcement. A few things. One, Apple's right, traffic enforcement's decreased. Clearly folks speed. I'm over on Riverside Ave, and like the mufflers and the speeding and the honking at all hours of the night is really frustrating. So I hear that. Two things I would say. One, I don't have a solution where I said, here is the proposal I wrote and I solved it. But I did follow up and asked Chief Burke and Milo about it, because those folks are, is very knowledgeable on public safety. And the chief is obviously the chief. There is some enforcement existing, it's decreased, but there is traffic enforcement happening. It is much decreased in recent years.
When?
For years now. I mean, it's been years that it's been substantially lower. But so I just want to say there is some officer staff time dedicated to that activity.
It's 4% of parking revenue, as I understand it.
Yeah, it's significantly lower. And I think we talked about this last time. There was just a really good presentation. The other thing I was going to say was there's a good presentation from Sergeant Millis at the Public Safety Committee on this exact topic on traffic enforcement recently. So I would encourage folks to go check that out. This is my ask to the chief has been to take this into account and start thinking about this. He's in the process of looking at we've heard about the priority response plan in terms of how do we use limited staff time of officers to respond to a bunch of challenges. In the last few years, we've seen increases in a bunch of different types of responses needed. We have already increased patrols and getting officers, staff hours onto Church Street, increasing visibility. I think it's been noticeably so. Our recruitment is still what it is. We haven't waved a magic wand and been able to deliver more recruitment numbers, although it's increasing, but it's still slow going. We need to up that still. So that's part of an ongoing conversation in terms of how do we organize ourselves to use staff time effectively in regards to officers when we can't hire 10 people tomorrow.
If I ask a question, since I haven't had a question yet. I just wonder too, there's like the traffic enforcement piece of pedestrian safety, which I think we've heard is really important. And there's just also bigger, more holistic strategies around, pedestrian and biking safety. And I wonder if that's something either you all could share with us at a future meeting, or maybe we could get a better sense of I know in times past, there was more of a true city plan around that involved enforcement, but involved the DPW and just how we are shaping our streets and all kinds of things. And it would be great to be able to get a sense of the whole plan.
Yeah, and Richard, I know you mentioned your thoughts in the past on sort of the built infrastructure conversation overshadowing the traffic enforcement piece. I do think the built infrastructure piece is really, all the data we have says that that's the most effective sort of preventative measure. It's not the only measure. Just very briefly, I think we did something like 5 traffic calming projects in the previous year. We have, I think in the hundreds of traffic calming projects on the list that different neighborhoods have requested, but we haven't had the funding to get those through, or actually deliver on those and actually, reorganize things. The bonds that we passed this past election, a big part of the intent for requesting those funds is to speed up traffic calming projects in part. So I do think that those funds will be helpful in that, but happy to talk about it at a future meeting too and go more in depth.
I think we have time for one more question. Is there anybody?
Just make a response to Carter.
Sure.
Carter, I hear what you're saying. All I am saying is that I have presented to numerous forums, including the Finance Committee, ways in which it can be not just self-financing, but actually contribute towards the police budget or whatever budget penalties for traffic enforcement convictions goes into. I'm trying to help and put more money into the pot rather than spend it. That's my motivation. By the way, it adds to public safety.
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
I know we have one more question, but and if time, a couple more very quick updates after this next question, but I also just want to echo how seriously I take this issue as the mom of young kids who scooter and bike on our sidewalks and walk to school. And I think this is, I care a lot. So I just want you to know I've also raised this with the new police chief, just asking, keeping in line with our community values and what's evidence-based, how can we be making sure that we're keeping our streets safe for everyone. So I hear you and I think it's important and we keep having this conversation.
Just a quick one. Have you considered working with the UVM Police Department? They're like a village in our city with their own police. I think they have about 17 sworn officers. And especially right now, when UVM is mostly out of session, there may be some flexibility there in certain intersections around UVM to get some help. Just an idea.
Great idea.
I don't know what the relationship looks like off the top of my head, but I think that makes a lot of sense. And I can follow up.
And look into it.
I just see them pulling people over sometimes on Burlington streets.
Yeah, I
just say that.
I do know that there's some collaboration, but I just don't know the details of how we lay that out. Yeah.
Can I give a couple more quick?
Yeah.
And these are more I hope, uplifting good news updates. One is that the Aging Council recently brought forward a report that CDNR, the Community Development and Neighborhood Revitalization, committee, which Carter and I both serve on, so we can't go too far. Well, I guess this is a public meeting if we were to talk about CDNR business, but the Aging Council brought forward some really great recommendations about ways to better support our folks who are age 65 and over in this community. I'm thrilled that we're going to be taking up that work on CDNR. An interesting fact is that just under 12% of the Burlington population is age 65 and over, and it's actually higher than the number of folks 18 and under. So it's a really important group in our community. And so we're doing a lot to really think about how can we be making sure that services are designed with this population in mind. What services do exist in the city? How can we map those and elevate those? And then the Aging Council needs a bit of love right now. They sort of have been a bit on hiatus after releasing this report. So we're going to be kind of figuring out how to rebuild and revitalize that group, especially in light of the CEDO-BWD merger and making sure that we have a home for it moving forward. So CDNR is going to be taking up that work starting, I believe, with our meeting next week on Wednesday. So it's important work. We'll continue to report out on it. And also, I didn't even necessarily mention too, because I didn't think to report out on this, but the Housing Trust Fund this week approved over $800,000 towards affordable housing projects in the community. That includes overhauling the sprinkler and HVAC systems at Macaulay Square, as well as a big 30-unit affordable housing development, the Shale Beach project with Champlain Housing Trust. So some really, some good news in our city. I think that's really exciting as well. So just wanted to share that out.
Thank you.
Sophie's had her hand up.
Oh, Sophie, you've had your hand up a long time. Okay, last question from Sophie. Then we're gonna go to our next.
Now, it's just the mouse.
Oh, it's just the mouse. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Last question to Angie, then we're gonna go to the next item.
Okay, this isn't a question. This is a statement.
Do you have a microphone?
Microphone.
Here you go.
I got one right here. It might buzz. Be mindful.
Oh.
Okay, I just want to express my real gratitude and thanks to city councilors.
You can start.
Yeah.
Fund adjustments, so that's why it's hard to figure out.
We're just gonna wing it tonight.
Okay, I'm gonna shout my gratitude for city council members. I happen to know that there's a great deal of undercurrent conflict and overcurrent conflict in city council. And I really appreciate that our city councilors seek to overcome that, seek to cooperate and discuss and see if we can get past the model that's being presented to us elsewhere in this country. This is Burlington, Vermont, and it's embarrassing that there is so much conflict and that people can't talk to each other. What the hell? Excuse my language. But I just want to say thank you so much for that work that you do. I mean, not just like the real work that you do, but being able to tolerate that and promote the good communicative work that you do.
All right, I think you can stay here, right? Because you and Jonathan are gonna talk about this NPA CDNR proposal. Thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you.
I forgot. Ready?
And you've got about, is 15 minutes enough?
We'll
Gonna be
make
enough?
it happen.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
See if paper notes we can shoot out. Thank you. Well, hello, everybody. I was going to do introductions. That's our first step at all these. We've been going around to all these different NPAs, but you all know Jonathan and I. We wanted to give an update and hopefully at the end of this have a general vote up or down if you support this idea. We don't want to get into like line editing and all that because we're going to every NPA and that would get unwieldy. But wanted to talk a little bit about a resolution called Strengthening the Relationship Between the Council city administration and the neighborhood planning assemblies. This is the work that came out of the Ward 1 NPA resolution, Ward 5, I think was in on too, to try to sort of level set and reset how the city and the NPAs relate to one another. Because we've experienced here in Ward 1, other NPAs have experienced sort of a mismatch of expectations, I would say, is a good way to put it, without sort of diving into one topic or another. And so we want to try to help address that is the intent. So I think we can go to the next slide. So yeah, like I said, fundamentally this work is to articulate and formalize the relationship between the city and the NPAs, and set some sort of group expectations or relational expectations between the two, and hopefully ultimately lead to better outcomes. So, sort of having a statement of values from the city council about what it believes the NPA, the role of the NPAs, a value statement from the NPAs themselves, and a value statement from the city administration. That's fine to you.
And as Carter raised, you may remember, maybe about a year ago, we came with a resolution here, and it actually went through all the NPAs. We brought that to the city council, and we asked the city council to consider what we could do to better define the relationship between NPAs and the city. And the result of that was a resolution was, I guess it was taken by the city council and handed over to CDNR to do something about it. CDNR is the Community Development and Neighborhood Revitalization Committee of the City Council. They organized a working group with city councilor, members of NPAs, and there were 3 of us, members of CEDO, and of the city attorney's office. And we got together and met over many months and came up with a set of rules, of kind of a definition of the relationship. Maybe we should cut to the chase because we're going to run out of time. So keep going. Yeah, we kind of talked this through. These were the affirming principles. So these would be like the whereases in a resolution. NPAs are essential, open and accessible. NPA shall adhere to state and local, I'm sorry, these are not whereases, these are parts of the resolution. NPAs are essential to the civic health of our community. NPAs shall be open and accessible to all city residents and abide by open meeting law. NPAs shall adhere to state and local laws regarding anti-discrimination, free speech, and accessibility. Adhere to the provisions of their bylaws, and decisions shall be made in a transparent manner. NPA shall expend fund allocated to them by the city council in a manner consistent with the city's terms and conditions. And the NPA shall set the terms and conditions for the gatherings and shall determine their agendas and priorities. So there's independence. One of the ways that was described by the city's attorney's office is that NPAs are independent within the city of Burlington. We are part of the city, but we are independent bodies within the city. At the same time, administration, this is part of the administrative group, and it's CEDO. CEDO will develop a standardized process in collaboration with NPAs by which each NPA can communicate annually a list of priorities to city council and city administration. So we could sit down and make a list. It'll be a short list, and we will do this fall if this all goes through, of the things that are most important to us. And basically it's a list. Come to Ward 1 NPA and talk about it. We recognize that the Ward 1 NPA is not fully representative of the ward. You don't have to be insightful to see that. We're not fully representative of the ward, but we are a voice of one of the voices of the ward. So if something matters to this group, we think it should be, what we care about, it should go to city council, should be regarded as something in city council. CEDO would also consult with other relevant city staff to develop easily understood materials that outline the legal requirements of the NPAs and consult with other relevant city staff to review and update these materials regularly and basically hold trainings for people who would want to have them. Collaborate with NPAs and other relevant city staff to ensure NPAs understand them, and include a representative chosen by the NPAs to serve on hiring committees to staff roles predominantly focused on supporting and liaising with the NPAs. So this is a real thing at this point. This would make a big difference.
I'm sorry, could you just clarify that bullet before you move on?
The last one?
About one representative for all the NPAs to serve on what kind of committees though?
These are this would be an HR committee hiring Shawnee. When
just the position that staffs the NPA solely, so it would be, I'm trying to see if it's broader or more narrow.
Well, its staff roles predominantly focused on supporting and liaising, okay? So if the primary responsibility was NPAs, we would have a voice, we would at least have a seat at the table of the hiring committee. That's what's here.
What threw me is the word committees versus anyway, that's
Well,
all.
and around here, there could be 2 or 3 hiring committees to hire for the same position.
Always.
It happens. Sorry, go.
No. So just a list of, again, resolve clauses, but really a list of value statements that we're hoping the city council at large can affirm. That we understand that MPAs play an important role in how we do our work. That feedback we get here is valuable. I think these should be non-controversial. And then that we encourage every city councilor to regularly attend their NPAs, because I do think, again, it's to Jonathan's point, it's NPAs are imperfect, but they are the existing structure we have, and I think a pretty good one overall to engage folks in a structured way. And so I think we ought to be, trying to do everything we can to improve them and grow them. We can go to the next one here. So one of the reasons this all came about was because Ward 1 and I think other folks felt like we didn't have enough input, and we would learn about things and then they were moving really quickly, especially with some of the MOUs on with some of the institutions in town that predominantly impact us in this area of the city. And so rather than trying to list a sort of laundry list of different issues specifically, we tried to sort of put in categories and types of issues that we may discuss. And so this is, encouraging the city council to endeavor in good faith to consult folks, or MPAs, I should say, on anything that impacts MPA governance and structure, issues that disproportionately impact a particular area of the city. So if they're I keep using this example, and people, I think, mishear me sometimes for like, you're destroying Szymanska Park. But if the city was like, we're going to level Szymanska Park tomorrow, it's not happening. But say they said that, Ward 1 would be disproportionately impacted by that. And we ought to have some special attention in this part of the city, which I think is intuitive. But we want to make sure that that's sort of stated plainly and that we get that as a sort of group agreement. And the same, I'm sure, is, the conversation around Keeslick Park, which I don't know if folks have followed, but is much more relevant maybe to the Old North End than to New North End folks. Yes, and then back to the ask of CEDO to develop this process where folks can highlight the priorities that they have, and that they sort of, if these things come up, they want city government to sort of flag that and say, wait a minute, have we gone and talked to the MPAs? Where is that in the process? We're going to have a major impact review development presentation later tonight. Redistricting changes. There's already a process by which MPAs send representatives to give input on redistricting, but we wanted to, again, sort of level set and make sure that that is stated clearly. And then we had a version of this, this town meeting day, but just at a bare minimum, informationally, we should hear from the city. I don't know if that's sort of a real word I just made up there on the spot, but we should hear from the city when there's things on the ballot. Let's make sure it's standard practice and sort of the norm to present those things to the MPAs and make sure folks are able to see a longer form discussion of those. So we can answer any questions. Yeah.
So it's a great set of values and directions and a great way to think about how we should be operating. How does it get used when things don't work? What do we do with this at that point? If say there is a big issue, like redistricting, that we all had input on and the whole city went another direction. How does this help that?
Yeah. You go.
You start.
Well, I was gonna say, one of the issues we realized in diving into this was that a bunch of the norms around the NPAs are ways that I think a lot of us may describe them or think about them. None of that was written down. None of that was ever sort of like mandated or sort of going back all the way to the creation of the NPAs. It was never really explicitly stated a lot of this stuff. So I think one is like, we ought to write it down. Two, I'm hoping that this is a little bit of a reset, and one of the reasons that we're not just sort of writing it and passing it, but going around to the NPAs, engaging with counselors, taking our time on this is because the value statements are only as good as the buy-in that we sort of create as a community to it. And so we want to make sure that the different stakeholders that we're talking about here are really fluent in this, understand why we're doing it, and appreciate that. And then I think inevitably we are going to get it wrong as a city. There's no way that we're going to be perfect on public engagement. But now we can come back to this one and say, okay, did we actually mess up here? Because we made this commitment. So it's something to come back in terms of conversations with staff and sort of the bureaucrats in the nicest sense of the term. And yeah, we've got to sort of have it evolving. I think it's an ongoing process. And then we may identify, an additional category that we didn't think of in terms of what the expectation is of, come talk to the NPAs about X, Y, or Z. But yeah, I think it's a little bit inevitable. And to be fair to sort of the, department heads and city staff, there is a list of 10,000 things they have on their plate at all times. And so trying to figure out, 100 of those will happen and you won't hear a peep, and 2 of those things happen and folks are blowing up phone lines. And so clearly those 2 things are really important in the neighborhood because people can feel it, see it, they have opinions on it. So what we're trying to do is create some sort of system, some sort of process to get city staff finding those 2 quicker and earlier, I guess, more often. But I'm sure we're going to miss it again because I think that's, we're imperfect.
Yeah, yes, and I can just add a little bit to that. I think we haven't, because this hasn't really been formalized in the past. Of course, the city council has authority. NPAs have no authority. Period. No, it's not even a joke. It's like it's real. We're advisory. City council is going to do what they want. Now, given that we have an agreement, or when we have an agreement, if you think about the example of the redistricting, there was a committee. The committee's recommendations were ignored. If at a public forum at city council, a representative from each of the 8 wards sat down and spent their 2 minutes talking about how the city council was ignoring the needs of the community and the voice of the NPAs, I think it might have had some power. It might have forced pulling back a little bit and thinking about it. I think it's important. This gives us, it kind of gives us an opportunity to organize because there's a commitment now. And we can do this together. That's kind of the way I see it. Our voices can be stronger.
It's a good theory of change stuff right there.
Yeah, so if I just follow up on this, just follow up on this thing. I noticed that in one of the whereases here is that each of the NPAs has their own bylaws and operating principles. I guess I'm surprised, maybe I should know this, but that there isn't something stronger. Does this suggest that there should be kind of a uniform set of bylaws for all of the NPAs that are then recognized by the city council? This is great. I mean, as a first step, I'll support this. But shouldn't that be an objective further down the road?
If you're trying to bring in the controversial waters here, Well, and so that's the question, like, one of the main, I think, pushbacks, or when we talk about like trying to build a relationship, is there's real, I think, distrust at times, or we've found through doing this, through various NPA student committees. And so there are sort of baseline, like, legal requirements, like this is an open meeting. So open meeting law applies, free speech, like, there's some sort of legal requirements that we are not formally saying or stating to NPAs, or at least on a regular or structured basis. So at a bare minimum, everything's got to respect that. Beyond that, the overwhelming feedback so far from NPAs has been they want independence to structure their own meetings. They don't want the city involved in bylaws. And so we want to, and there's been real confusion, like, where's that line? And what is the bare minimum legal requirement? What is sort of up to the NPAs to decide for themselves?
And if I can, again, just give one example. Many of the wards have term limits on their steering committees. If we had had a term limit on steering committees when Richard bravely, single-handedly for a decade staffed this, we wouldn't have had an NPA. The NPA would have dissolved it. So we took term limits out of the Ward 1 bylaws because we didn't think it was right. That doesn't mean that people can vote, you can always vote somebody off if you want. But there's an example where it might work for other boards, but maybe it doesn't work for this board. That's kind of the way we're thinking about those, those aspects of a bylaw.
We're over
Yeah.
time. I'm wondering if you could maybe do one more question and then come to a vote, knowing that if we will get to talk to these folks month after month too. And I'll just go check in with our presenters.
I don't know who raised their hand first.
Just somebody else is speaking.
Catherine, we haven't heard from yet tonight. There you go. Bye.
So Jonathan, you said that they're gonna vote the way they vote and we're just advisory. I started thinking, I mean, having gone to city council, everybody gets their 2 minutes and they have like really profound and well thought out comments, or not, sometimes they're just stupid. But the Democrats vote one way, progressives vote the other way, and it doesn't inspire me to continue doing that. So what I'm thinking, that if the NPAs are only advisory, would there be a way that you could add on to this motion that the NPA has agreed on this as a body, and then we get 5 minutes to talk to city council?
I'm open to it. I think that's part of the iterative process I was referring to. I think we do expand from here. The way I'm seeing this is we are sort of getting our internal house in order, so to speak. Like, as an organization, like, we need some basic processes in place to function a little better. I mean, I'm open to that. I don't know that, just given the sort of process we've committed to developing what's in this specific one, we ought to do that. But my hope is that the NPA is, like, if I could wave a magic wand, like Greg was saying up front earlier, if I could wave a wand, that the NPAs are not just advisory, that we are moving toward a practical form of direct democracy that is helping informing decisions that impact neighbors' lives, because it's our collective neighborhood.
Yep.
So we ought to just have more of a say, and it shouldn't just be, some major change in the neighborhood happens because we currently have X number of members of one party or another. And that shouldn't, to my mind anyway, but that's a larger debate.
Do you feel like we could? Do you want to take the pulse of the room or a formal vote about supporting this?
Yes.
Is that your hope for tonight? Would you like me to facilitate a vote for you?
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. And so we just know that we are lucky enough to have Jonathan and Carter with us every month, so we can continue this discussion about the role of the NPAs and just how we can help move this resolution forward, and also really use it as a tool, hopefully once it's unanimously supported and passed by the city council. All right, so the motion, we're looking for a motion to voice the support of the Ward 1 NPA for the proposed resolution. Does that sound like the right motion? Would anybody like to make that motion?
I'll make it.
All right, so do we need a second? I should have this. And anybody like, okay, we've got a second. A third, all right, it's just going, it's just popcorn. All right, so all those in favor, raise your hand.
You need to have discussion.
Oh, is there any, well, we did just have a lot of discussions, didn't we?
So, and actually, this is not a Robert's rules kind of anyways, I think it's
We're doing a temperature check for these two right now, I think, so. All those feeling supportive of moving forward with this resolution and continuing. We've got not quite consensus, but some support. Okay. All right.
Are there folks who oppose it? One, okay. Good, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you both.
So maybe some further discussion can happen we've run out of time, but just to hear more about Sharon's concerns and where it's coming from. Is that a commitment the two of you can make?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Great, thank you. All right, let's welcome our next presenters.
I was getting excited to say this one.
Hi. I'm so delighted to be able to introduce you all to, we're just gonna make sure I'm getting your titles right. Of course, I know your names, but I've had the opportunity to work with these two for a long time over the years, and they have just done incredible work in our community, serving folks who are dealing with substance use disorder and just really in some vulnerable places in our community with so much compassion and care and intelligence and evidence, and just really both of them are treasures in my mind. So we've got Teresa Vizina, who is our special assistant to the mayor on Overdose Prevention Center implementation, working for the city, and then Jess Kirby, who's the director of client services at Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform and formerly worked in Safe Recovery. And they're going to tell us about the plans for the Burlington Overdose Prevention Center and how that's moving forward. And we've got about 30 minutes, maybe a little closer to 25.
All right.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Selena. Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for having us this evening. Thank you, Selena, for that introduction. So I do want to start by saying we have some slides, but I'm not going to focus on the slides. I would really like to be able to have this be an open conversation as well. So we want to make sure we leave plenty of time for questions. And I'll be tossing it over to Jess. But if we want to go ahead and maybe go to the next slide, I can just kind of give you a little bit of like, where is this project at? I'm not sure how many people here know how it even came to be through Act 178. And through that legislation, it allowed the city of Burlington to engage in a partnership with an OPC provider, Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform, VCJR, I'll say for short, as we move through this conversation. I stepped into this role in December. And since that time, we are now at the stage of the project that the project proposal has been developed and approved by City Council at the end of April. And it went to the Health Department the next day on April 29th. And so we are looking forward to having an official contract in place for July 1st. At that point, I think we could maybe slide to the next slide. We will be able to begin accessing funds. This entire project is funded by the opioid settlement dollars. And opioid settlement dollars are really specifically coming through the state as a pass-through and then to the city. And then they'll be granted to BCJR to do this amazing work. This is not an easy project. It's complex. There's a lot to it. And I can't wait for Jess to be able to tell you a little bit more about VCJR's vision for the project. But I know one of the big questions is how is this being funded? So we currently have $2.2 million for the first 2 years. The first year, we're really looking at planning and capacity building. I know site selection is on everybody's mind, and that process has not yet begun. But I did include in my email a digital handout that kind of walks people through what that plan will look like and process, so you can kind of be aware of how that's going to unfold with a lot of community support and input. Next slide. And then I tossed to Jess. So if you could talk a little bit about ECJR, that would be great.
Do you want me to talk about just BCR or more our vision about BC? Okay. I know we don't have a lot of time, so. Okay, an introduction, Teresa, for setting the stage. I'm Jess Kirby. I'm a person with lived experience with opioid use disorder. I'm from Vermont and I've grown up in Chittenden County and live in South Burlington now and have lived in Burlington and Colchester and really care a lot about this community and want to see it get healthier again and want to see community members be happier and people with substance use disorder have their needs met better. And we're really excited about bringing this new thing and trying something new that we know will save lives. We know will provide a lot of services to a really difficult to engage population. We've been working on it for a long time and we're finally starting to see it come to fruition, which we're really excited about. But basically just to tell you a little about what we do now and what we're planning to add with OPC. We have a direct service program for people living with substance use disorder and co-occurring mental health disorders. We have been focusing mainly on justice involved people, but we have a really broad definition of that, in the way that it's people who have been impacted by the justice system, if that's they're at risk for, involvement with the justice system, because of behaviors, maybe substance use and those kinds of things, or they have a past history of or currently, wrapped up in that system, but will be, that won't be a requirement as we're moving into OPC services. And I really, there has not ever been anybody who hasn't met our criteria because, like I said, we have a really general definition anyway, but we are really good at engaging people who are really challenging to reach and people who are often not engaged with any other service providers. We feel really proud of that. And we right now currently have a walk-in program. It's kind of walk-in for services, not really like drop in, as like a traditional kind of drop in where you can just come hang out and maybe, sit for a few hours on your phone. It's more kind of walk in for like services and support. And people do that all day, every day. We make calls to treatment. We, help people get to maybe the methadone clinic. We help people connect with their probation officers at court. We have a partnership with Johnson Health Center, which is a low barrier medical provider, and they offer low barrier medical care services for people with substance use disorder at our office 4 days a week, and do things like wound care and treatment for mental health, and treatment for substance use disorders like buprenorphine. And we just try to make it super easy for people because things I know as a person that's struggled a lot and has tried to access services and has access services in Chittenden County, that it's hard to come back next week for an appointment, to call when you don't have a phone, and to, set things up ahead of time, to not know where you're going, to be scared, to have maybe had a bad experience there in the past and not want to go back. So we really try to just be like, come. If you come, we'll help you with what you need. And it'll be, that's how we want it to be at the OPC, but in a bigger way with more staff and more support and more resources where we can help a lot more people because we're really small right now. And with that, so there'll be case management and medical care and, connection to treatment and treatment in-house, and, drop in and all those things. And so, we'll be able to expand that in a much bigger way and add consumption services through the OPC. So we really envision it being like a medical and harm reduction sort of hub for people that really struggle, that are at risk for overdose in a really big way, people who are, really disconnected in the community, people that are having a high impact on the community. And we, have a lot of faith in our ability to engage that population because we've worked with this population for a really long time. We have a lot of trust and buy-in. people always tell us like 5 or 10 of my friends has told me to come see you. And so we feel like we're the right fit because we're really well known with our client group. And so, you know, we envision it being like, it's not the OPC where every person that's coming there is definitely going in there to, you know, maybe consume drugs, that people could be coming there for all kinds of things. There will be plenty of people that are coming in there every day that aren't, you know, using any substances that day. It's a component that we're adding to our program that's really needed for a lot of reasons. And we are really excited to, you know, be offering that to the community, but have it be a part of like a continuum of services and filling a gap that is really big in our community right now. We don't have a place like I'm describing that's robust enough to meet the need. And people, you know, I think this is a big piece that we're missing and that people really need. So feel free to ask questions. And if you have things you want to add, of course. Yeah.
I am not going to say any more because I really want to be able to leave time for questions. And I feel like as we get questions, we'll be able to share more information with you all. So, yes.
You said you're relatively small right now. Can you give us a sense of, you know, how many clients you serve?
Yeah.
And also with the advent of a new clientele, how big will it grow?
Yeah. So we have served between 300 and 350 people since we have been at the location that we're at, which is on the corner of Bank and Pine Street. It's a lot of people in Burlington, you know, 300 to 350 people. We have 3 staff right now. We'll be hiring a lot more staff. We've worked in bigger programs. We're all alumni of the Howard Center and all have experience in harm reduction and syringe exchange for many years in Burlington. But, you know, we see, I think, usually between like 150 and 225 people in a year, but it's been between 300 and 350, somewhere in there, that we've that have come to us for something since we've been there, which is about 3 years this August. I forgot what the other part of your question was.
Now, that's sort of your base case right now.
Yeah.
How big is this going to grow?
Burlington is not that big. You know, we hear people say a lot that there is, you know, a small number of people that are having maybe a large impact on Burlington. I actually think that the vast majority of the people that we'll interact with and people that will come use the OPC are people that we already know and are already working with. So I don't think that that's going to go from like 300 to 1,000. You know, I would be extremely surprised. You know, when I go walk by the park, when I go downtown, it's pretty rare that I don't know almost everybody. So will we expand some? Will there be more clients that will be coming? I'm sure, but I don't think that that's going to be a significant jump. I think that, you know, we live in a pretty small like catchment area, and I think that it'll be a lot of people that we already know and some new people. And there'll be people that are pretty much, you know, in the heart of downtown. You know, I think a lot of the unhoused population, which is pretty much who we see right now. But I think, you know, I wouldn't say that I think that would go up by more than like 100 or so, probably, because, you know, I don't think it's going to be, you know, I think we know pretty well through a lot of evidence that other OPCs that people aren't going to be traveling like 2 hours to come use this, you know, and I know that also from being a person with lived experience that people, when they're, you know, accessing drugs are usually not like waiting many hours or even a half an hour. You know, that's why it needs to be in a close place so that people can access it easily. But so I don't think it'll get much bigger, but you know, some. I know.
Thank you. Just I'm curious how you judge your success currently and how you will judge it in the future with new funds.
So a lot of how we judge our success is, you know, that is client report, which is client satisfaction surveys, is by the way that people keep coming back to us. The way that we have relationships with people over, you know, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, that people come back to us over many years through many bumps, through periods of use, periods of non-use, periods of strong recovery. We're able a lot of times to help people stabilize when things start falling off track again, because we are really skilled at not making the basis of our relationship with people only about their substance use. And you know, like as somebody that's gotten a lot of services for substance use, I think that that's something that happens a lot, that it's about where are you at with that? What is going on with getting treatment and how are we going to get you that right now? And people are in different places on different days about that. You have to just let people know that you're there for them, caring about them, whatever their needs are with that, and be consistent about offering those things and trying to keep the barriers low and helping people to continue trying and having the motivation to continue trying. And so that's one of the best ways that I think we judge our success is that we hear from clients all the time how appreciative they are of our services, how they never feel judged with us, how they feel safe to come to us for anything, and that people do keep coming back over many years. We have really impressive like participation data, and we certainly have outcome data for our programs for grants and such, but it's mostly about people continuing to come to us. With this, it'll be, studied really carefully, and we're gonna be looking for things like reduction in overdoses. And, do you want to tell a little bit about some of the, things we're gonna be looking at with the evaluation? Yeah.
So I'm gonna actually add a little bit to the first question, and share that we are gonna start this planning process with a service assessment. There are operating guidelines that were set out by the health department, which are gonna feed into both learning more about the folks, what they need, how many people, what are you looking for in services that VCJR will provide, but also baseline data. So that's going to feed into how are we going to measure outcome. So there is going to be a service assessment and a neighborhood impact assessment. Both of those will give us some baseline data. Then as the program opens and folks are starting to utilize the different services there is a requirement to have monthly reporting, quarterly reporting, and then annual public facing reporting as well. And then Act 178 requires at the end of the project another big report done. So we really want to have a very robust evaluation plan in place so that we can measure, right, some specific data points. And there was a really great report that was done in Somerville, and we're working with the teams from around the country who've been doing this research and doing these studies. So we're really lucky to be able to have some of the tools that they use, surveys that they used, data points that they collected. So by being not the first, we do get to have some technical assistance and some help from other folks. So really looking forward to being able to share that with people after.
That's a Kathy question. I just wanted to ask, how can you, and maybe this is too early yet, what does the personnel look like when it's fully open? I mean, you said you only had 3 people there now, so what does that look like, and who are the people that will comprise the personnel?
Not
with names, but.
What are the positions? So there'll be an executive director, a director of the OPC. We just recently hired an implementation manager to help with getting it up and going, and helping with technical assistance and training and policy writing and citing and all those things. But so we'll have somebody that's helping implement, we'll have an executive director, an OPC director, somebody helping with implementation. A medical director. That will come with a nurse and, a medical provider. Also probably 4 people that will work in the OPC area where the consumption actually happens with, we haven't decided what titles will be, but they have like New York has like a responsible person in charge that's providing supervision over the people that are, being present in the room where people are consuming substances, but 3 to 4 case managers, so quite a lot of staff, at least probably 10 will get brought on, so, we require a lot of people, we wanna do it well and do it right and have the people we need.
Carol.
I'm interested to know if you can tell us about the age demographic. I'm not interested in any other demographics about the population of the people you're serving at this point. But is there a decade or two age-wise where you're seeing more people coming in than other decades in age?
Yeah, it's typically people in their 30s and 40s. Is very, very common. That's the most common age that we see. We did a median age one time just for fun, and it was like 37. But I would say 30s and 40s. Yeah.
I don't really understand how opioid settlement funds work. But you also did mention something about a final report at the end of the project. I'd love to dream that a problem really is going to get solved by this. But I have trouble believing that there won't be a need for this 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now. Is this sustainable? Is the settlement fund available to sustain this, or does this become part of the city budget? And I just, thinking about our earlier conversation.
I think we'll both probably end up speaking to this. And a sustainability plan is also required in the operating guidelines, because recognizing right now the legislative intent is to fund this with opioid settlement dollars through FY28. And then we can always go back for more. The opioid settlement funds are 15 years of sort of I think a few have gone by already. And it started out as 18. It started out at 18, but a few of those years have already passed now. So, we're thinking about 15 years in addition to the 3 that were sort of intended through the initial Act 178. Now, what that amount is going to be hasn't been determined. This is a priority of the OSAC, the Opioid Settlement Committee, and in Vermont legislature. So that, I think, bodes well, but being able to measure that success, and I really like that someone asked that. This is a pilot project. If we have the data and the stories, because human stories are as important as data, and if those match up together and we're seeing the positive outcomes that we expect from this project, I think it'll be very easy not only to get additional opioid settlement dollars, but also to reach out to other grantors. There's private foundation funds out there, there's philanthropy. There are a lot of ways that nonprofits currently always have to find funds from many other places besides government dollars. And so we would hope that it never become a burden on taxpayers.
Let's go to Sharon.
Yeah.
Sure.
Get your mic. Oh, I've got one, thank you.
If we're the pilot, which I know we are, in the state, and the question was asked, how many people do you currently serve? And then you said you don't expect that number to grow.
Too much.
If you're too much, I think you said something like 100 people, maybe, but I'm not, but you're just speculating, obviously. So what my own experience in Burlington is that what we have done well is provide services for people that are underserved. And sometimes that has caused people that need those services come to Burlington because of the need of those services. So as you're speaking, and if this pilot is successful, and I don't know, I mean, there are millions of dollars in the opioid money that's coming to the state, but I don't know how it's all being disseminated besides to this center, this pilot. But would you be concerned? I mean, in your wildest dreams, if it's successful, would the pilot then be replicated in areas around the state? Because I think if there's a need, that makes sense. Because my concern is that if it's successful, and I want it to be for the people you're going to serve, people might end up moving here or coming here to get the services that they need. And it creates a vicious cycle where you're doing something positive, but it's having a negative impact. And so have you in your conversations even contemplated that?
Sure. It's a question that we get asked a lot, and you know, we can never say exactly what happens when you're starting something new. But I, you know, personally and my clients, we aren't concerned about that. Although, you know, people have concern that people come here for resources, I don't think the addition of like one place makes people move and relocate. You know, the only thing new that will be there is that people can consume drugs there, that there'll be a few stations where people can consume drugs. And, you know, people who are using drugs, I don't think will get in a car and travel from Essex to utilize it, let alone like move and relocate here. I think it's really going to be for people that are already in Burlington that are, you know, not having a place to use already. So I think like, yes, there are more resources in Burlington in general, and that makes it a place that people might come. But I don't think that the addition of this is going to bring new people. And there's a lot of data from OPCs that already exist that says that that hasn't happened, that they have not seen that at all, and that they really see people that are already in the catchment area utilizing the OPC.
Importantly, that's one aspect, but the other aspect is if it's successful and there's a need, then have you talked about, you know, if the pilot's successful at a state level, you know, would we be replicating these around the state as maybe one or two others? I'm just saying like in Bennington or Brattleboro or someplace, Rutland or whatever. I'm just copying those names out, but strategically to serve the people that will not be served if they don't travel, relocate.
I'm really excited to answer that question, actually. As being also a part of the original bill, that it says that any organization that can meet the operating guidelines, and it's a 28-page document, it's a lot of guidelines, would be able to operate an OPC. Now, no one said what size or where. As long as you can meet those guidelines, I believe wholeheartedly from running syringe service programs for over a decade across the state, that syringe service programs are well positioned across our state to bring in this. Again, you're adding one service to a service buffet that's already there doing all the other harm reduction and safer use work, and staff has already got that harm reduction philosophy. And so in my dream, if I had a magic wand and we were able to help every syringe service program across the state be able to include this in as one of their service options, I think it would be beautiful. I ran syringe service programs in St. Johnsbury, Barry, Rutland. We work up in St. Albans, you know, we know the folks down in Brattleboro and White River, and I just think there's a lot of potential here for other programs to be able to duplicate and learn from us. We're going to learn from Rhode Island. We had an opportunity, the mayor and I, to tour the OPC in Providence. They are actually going to be providing technical assistance to BCJR to help them get their program up and running, learning from other folks. So I think a similar thing, hopefully, again, I can't speak for those organizations. I no longer work for those organizations, but it would be really, if it's successful and we see that it's keeping people alive, why not?
Thank you. I think we have to end there and move, give a little time to hear from the folks about the U-Haul storage facility proposal, but thank you so much. And I'm guessing if we want to have you back at another point to hear more as the project moves forward, you'd be willing to come back and tell us more again.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, so let me interrupt just for a second. So obviously, these microphones, it's like the blue one, this one, and that one, those work great. Now, these wireless ones are causing all this trouble. Do you want me to continue to bring those things back here and try to figure out where to set all these levels? Or do you want to eliminate? Do you want to eliminate
No.
the wireless? or you
No,
want-
wireless is good.
Okay.
Make it work. We'll move the speaker back or something outside. So
There are different things that you try.
right?
Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
Hi, welcome, yes. All right.
It's a hot season.
We're working on being really nice tonight, and we're wanting to. Yeah, well, they were talking about drugs, so just kidding. Welcome. Do you want to jump right into? Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure, I know
Great.
you're running a little late,
Thank you.
but so I'll keep the introduction short and just open it up for questions. But my name is Doug Goulet. I'm a civil engineer with Bowman Company in Williston, formerly Trudell Consulting Engineers. We'll be doing the general site design on the site, which I'm going to get into in a minute. And Jeff Bain represents U-Haul. So we're here tonight to talk about a proposed U-Haul facility at the former Coffee Cup Bakery location on Riverside Ave. We have a site plan and an architectural. It doesn't really matter. Is the site plan available?
Is it one of these things?
Should be. Right, there you go. Thank you. So here's a overhead view. Riverside Avenue is kind of blurry, but it's the road along the top of the sheet. It's a 2-acre site. As I said, used to be occupied by Coffee Cup Bakery. As you probably know, all the buildings have been demoed and now it's a vacant lot. And we're proposing a 30,000 square foot rental facility, all inside self-service rental, run by U-Haul, obviously. There'll be proposed 2 new curb cuts at either end of the site. Both 2-way traffic in. The main loading and unloading area is around the rear. There'll be 4 or 5 parking spaces and unloading for trucks and such, and an opportunity to actually drive into the building in inclement weather and unload your materials that you're going to be storing inside. So it's a little bit different. There's, it's not your typical U-Haul site. There won't be any rental trucks or cars or outside storage whatsoever. Everything is contained inside the building. There's no workers there. It's all automated. I don't know, Jeff, you want to go into a little bit more about what a day in the life of this building would look like operationally?
Okay, so like Doug was saying, all these, oops, I'm sorry. All the storage is inside the building. It's climate control storage. There is no exterior access to your storage facility. All the access is at the rear of the building, so it won't be seen from the road. Inside, there's gonna be 542 units inside. It's a 2-story building.
How many?
542. It's very similar design. I know we just completed a project in Williston, on Williston Road. If you've been by there, it's a very similar facility as far as the design is that facility that we went through the Williston DRB board to design with them. And we brought a lot of those articulations and design to this project here.
We can go back to the elevations if you don't mind.
Pulling back.
Yep. Yep, that's good.
How many stories?
2 stories. No, that's fine. This is a rendering of what the building would look like on the site. In this zoning district, there's a 0 front yard setback, which incentivizes the buildings to be up fairly close to the road, which we've done with the layout. I don't know. I guess it kind of speaks for itself, different colorations and such, you know, again, a lot of this came from input from Williston. I know we're not Williston, but basically trying to break up the facade of a really large building by using these architectural methods, if you will. I'm not the architect, so I can't give you much detail on the justifications for that, but this is what's on the table, at least conceptually. So I think that's it for our presentation. I guess we could just open it up now to questions.
I was just curious, is there a sidewalk that's in front of it?
There is.
There is.
And that will be maintained, obviously.
Okay.
Just related to that, you said that it was being incentivized to be closer to the road. What is the justification for that incentive? I know that site is challenging with the hill and back on it, but pushing that back, in my mind, would be nice.
Yeah. I guess I'm used to working in, you know, municipalities where front yard setbacks are, you know, 20, 30, 40 feet, not 0. So I think for whatever reason, whoever wrote the, you know, regulations of Burlington, felt that buildings, you know, closer to the street was something they wanted to see. We're about 7 feet back from the property line, I believe. So, but you're right. If you've been by the site, there's a steep embankment in the rear of the site that we don't want to touch. So to get the vehicles, you know, to the back of the site, including, you know, trucks, there needs to be a fairly large area for vehicle mobility back there. So that brought the building to the front as well. So in the back of the lot, we're going to have about a 5 or 6 foot retaining wall, which will be just in front of what you see now for what used to be the rear of the buildings. Again, we don't want to do any earth disturbance on that slope, so we're respecting that slope and staying off it. Yeah.
So, I have 2 points. One is when Riverside Avenue was upgraded, and it never really was upgraded the way the design originally was proposed, but a number of people from this ward walked the sidewalks on either side, and you feel pretty close to the travel lane. And so to have the building so close to the sidewalk and then the pedestrian feeling wedged between traveling vehicles and that building is not desirable. And so I understand that this is what is allowed, but I think there's a safety factor here. I don't know what wiggle room you have. You mentioned the retaining wall, but I'm just bringing that up as something that is real. It's valid, and I would like to understand that better. I have one question. When do you go to the Development Review Board with this project? That's question number 1. And the other thing was that I want to be honest, I was incredibly disappointed. It's your property, your right to develop, that this was a project that had no housing component. And so I was hoping that as U-Haul, if you have a presence already, that you could have done a mixed use that would have had a component of some housing and have also this. And so that's why I was asking how many stories. That's why I'm talking about all of this, because to me, there's a missed opportunity here. But I understand it's your property, your business, and I'm only voicing the need that I see in the community, with the reality of limited space in the community also for additional housing. So, but the issue is for me, when you go to the DRB, and if you had to, if indeed that close proximity to the sidewalk becomes an issue, is there a little wiggle room for you to move it back a little bit? Thank you.
Take the first one.
First one's easy. We don't know when we're going to be at the DRB. We're really a concept design, so that's months down the road.
Yeah, on your second question, at this point, we're still in the design process on that. The lot is tight. It is very, very tight for us. And the city does prefer to have parking behind the buildings. They do not like to have parking out in front of the building.
Oh, yes, I
And
understand.
so we're pushing that back, and it's a tight lot to begin with us. And the housing issue, that's just not our business model. We're not in.
So you store things, you can store people and housing.
I have a quick question. As part of the planning, is there any plans to do like a traffic impact assessment? And I guess if there is that something we would be privy to seeing?
Sure.
Typically, the DRB will want to see traffic numbers. Jeff and I were talking out in the hallway. Just by the use of this site, the numbers are really low. I mean, people come, they store their stuff 3 months, 6 months later, they come and get it. I think Jeff was saying, it might be 5 or 6 vehicles per day. Except when, the schools, colleges are being opened up, and then it gets a little more hectic, and U-Haul has the ability to step in and manage that. I mean, Jeff could speak a little more on that, but generally speaking, traffic will be really minimal at this site.
Yeah, I think that's one of the bigger questions that people ask is traffic impact. And we have to remember, our studies show that the average customer stays 3 months. We have 542 units. You break that out, we're gonna have 6 customers on an average a day. So there's not a lot of impact in the storage facility. There really isn't. So, but it's a good question.
I have a question because I know maybe 5 years, 10 years ago, there was a whole lot of discussion about building things on that road. And they did not want them built because, as you say, you don't want to get close to that embankment. Well, there's been a lot of those embankments that have come down. And I guess I'm worried about, are you not going to, in building this huge building, not also disturb the earth around this? And we already see on the other side of the street that there are embankments and mudslides. So I'm wondering how are you going to get this building even through a design process?
That's a good question. Before we even got the process, though, we've had extensive geotech surveys that go down about 40 feet and that study soils. They take samples out of it. We have independent engineers. It's always concerned when we're building, but we've done our due diligence, we feel, on how to build on that piece of property. We've done a lot of geotech surveys on this place and on the properties beside it. So I think we've met. There shouldn't be an issue. It won't be an issue.
Is there just to follow up on Kathy's question, is there is some environmental impact like documentation requirements the same way you have that traffic impact as you move it forward to DRB? Do you have some intent to present some information about environmental impacts and especially these questions?
Typically not, for something like this, it doesn't have Act 250 jurisdiction. I mean, it's a fully developed site, impervious surfaces are already there and such. So unless the DRB specifically asks for some sort of environmental assessment, we typically wouldn't do it on redevelopment sites.
Beauty.
So I'm gonna tag off Kathy's question. Have you done any surveys on weight? That road is built on fill and unstable fill. And not only is the north side, there's been over 20 landslides on the north side since 1929. But now on the south side, you're starting to see landslides. And the research is showing a lot of it is caused because of the unstable fill and the weight of the trucks traveling that road. And climate change and the increase of a lot of rain. Have you done any studies on that?
Well, as Jeff said, I'm not a geotechnical engineer. That's a whole nother level of engineering, but that's exactly.
Oh, neither am I, but I got the answers.
Well, right, but the geotechs look at that is, we're gonna load this site, with a certain amount of weight of the building and all the other things. And what will that soil underneath accommodate? Do they have to put larger footings? And that's their job, is to make sure in this particular site, knowing, I'm sure they know the history of it. To know that building this building on this site won't create a problem for them or anyone
Well,
else.
it's loamy soil. And after the last glacier, there was an ice age that dammed up right there. So each one of those terraces is beachfront property. So you're looking at the sand that people are trying to build on there. When it collapses, they fill it with irregular fill, cement, and rebar, and anything they have on hand, and weight shifts it around and causes the collapse.
Yeah, we're gonna rely on the geotechnical. That's their job to make sure this. If you can't rely on them, I'm not sure how you.
Have they done the work?
They have.
And what was the result of their report?
I have not seen it, to be honest with you.
You're gonna rely on them and you haven't seen it?
Well,
Oh, God.
They didn't say we couldn't move forward with this, put it that way. They gave us the green light to be trusted.
So, yeah, I've seen the report on it, and it's been, the city will have their engineers go through the report also. They're not gonna take our word for it. These reports are pretty extensive. This is over 100 pages. And it's gonna be public record. I could get you a copy if you want to read it. It's pretty boring reading, but the city is going to have to sign off on this, and the city's engineers will have to sign off on this. Again, they're not going to take our word for it. We're just going to build here whatever we want to build. There's going to be some strict regulations on how we build this.
And what are you thinking of for a retaining wall in the back? Chicken wire and stone like the other places?
Excuse me?
What are you thinking of for retaining wall in the back?
At this point, it would probably just be a block wall. Yeah, some type of decorative block wall. We're not to that stage in the design. We'll be discussing that with the DRB. If they have recommendations, they have aesthetic.
I would suggest you take a look at VIP on that road.
Yeah.
Because at the end of Nash Place on Colchester Island, there was a collapse and it came in VIP's backyard. Also look at the last condo complex. At the end of Nash Place, there's a garage and the corner of it is hanging over with nothing under it. And the trees have already slid down into the developments with the condos are in. And they have stone and chicken wire holding up the bank.
Yeah, again, we're gonna have people smarter than me as engineering gonna figure this out for us. And as far as design goes, we're pretty, it doesn't, as long as it does what it has to do, I don't care what it looks like. I mean, I want it to be aesthetically pleasing, so.
Well, I think you're definitely hearing some interest from us in these environmental questions, so if there is follow-up detail you wanna share, that would be great.
It's right on the
And then
chat.
come back here.
With the existing site?
Excuse me?
What are you gonna do with the existing site? Well, there's a U-Haul building.
Oh, we're gonna keep that facility. This storage facility is an unmanned storage facility.
Okay.
So it's gonna be run out of that location. Our plan is to renovate that building also, though that property needs some upgrade. We are gonna put a design into the city to paint, reside, and redo that building also.
Okay.
And I think you just answered my question. I just wanted to make sure I understood. So there will be no employees at this site?
There would just be a janitorial staff that would be cleaning. That's it. Yeah, everything's run remotely out of that facility.
Carter.
I had three. One was, I'm curious if you have any idea.
Like,
Open. Here, thank you.
I don't know if that's enough.
It's not.
That might be someone else's what's going.
Anyone want? Okay, well, I'm curious if there's any idea of what the estimated revenue to the city would be. Just based on this is a non-functional property and now there's some actual use. And if you have any sense of what that is. The other was just, and again, there's people much more than me who know much more about this stuff, but one concern, I have is just the drainage, because there's this really, really big pipe underneath that lot where all the drainage was supposed to go, and it's running all the way down. I mean, you can kind of see, if you go down on that trail right there, there's like this giant metal pipe coming down that collapsed in at some point. And that was the drainage at one point. So I'm curious about runoff and just sort of stormwater management, how you're all thinking about that. And then the third was just, I know we had a large discussion on neighborhood code. One of the things, there's a couple different parts of the city that the planning office, for lack of a better term, sort of put a pin in and said, okay, like we're gonna sort of zone this section, and Riverside is one of these, in this way for now, knowing that we want to come back to it and have sort of a more in-depth process to figure out how we use this space in the long term for the city. So I'm curious how that kind of fits into this. Not that I think you should be planning the long-term development strategy of the city, but I'm curious sort of what conversations have happened and if that's come up.
You want to do stormwater first?
Stormwater is a good point. We'll definitely be looking at that carefully with the city, and clearly the goal will be to at least reduce peak runoff on the site if we can from what's happening now, and looking at the outfalls and such. But Burlington has a fairly strict stormwater code, as does the state of Vermont. So we haven't really done a deep dive into that at this point, but we understand that's an important factor in the design of this, is managing the stormwater. Obviously, I can't speak on the tax benefits. If you have any comments on that.
Yeah, there's not much I can.
And right now, we're just, we're doing what is allowed, in the current zoning. So we really go beyond looking at that future zoning, what that could bring.
Yeah, I mean, future zoning on it is not something that, we're not looking, we know what it's zoned now. And what we would like to use the property for. And that's the regulations that we're working on. The stormwater, this, as Doug said, the state and the city have some pretty strict regulations on stormwater. They will address that. That'll be front and center probably when we bring this thing to the DRB, is what we do with stormwater. So, and there's some pretty strict management on that. So there's no wiggle room on that. We'll do what they tell us to do.
Can I say one last thing? So I think, wait a second, I can never find. Hi, once again. I think what you're hearing is that we live in this section, and Riverside Avenue has got a lot of attention. There's Salmon Run, which the woman referenced. And when that housing project came into be, they thought that the slope was stable, but then they had to put, I don't even know what I'm talking about, but riprap or whatever it is, they had to go back and stabilize that. I was a city councilor at the time, and it was really clear to me that that bank needed stabilization. What you're also hearing is that the fill, the land is not just earth. It was filled with, some areas were old dumps. So there were like washing machines and crap. And then dirt in and around. So it made the whole area less stable. So you're hearing that. We're sharing all of this with you because even though you've had the geo, and that's required because of the focus on this particular part of the city, because Colchester Avenue is up here, all our little houses are here, and then Riverside Avenue's down there, and their little houses there. And we don't want them to all merge together and kill each other here. So we're trying to protect this slope that's unstable, the roadway, that has been built, and then there's the other side of the bank that goes to the river. So all of this needs special consideration. And so even though you've had the geotechnical review, I think that the takeaway that I would like you, the developers, to think about is let them know about this site. Paul Bierman is a professor at UVM who's done a lot of work, and actually we've gone to the state about a lot of projects, housing projects. I've been part of that process. So these are germane concerns that really need to be focused on as you move forward with your proposal. And so I hope you find this helpful in the sense that, you know, this is a kind of a unique spot and challenging to build on, no matter what you do. Okay.
And we appreciate that. And at that point, we really don't want to build a building that's going to end up in the river either.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't benefit us either. And we're hopefully going to be there a long time. We want to be good neighbors also. You know, it is zoned for it, so hopefully we can get in there and get this project going. But we do want to hear what the community has to say. We want to truly hear their input on design, on concerns that they have. And Burlington and the state are pretty strict on building on these types of locations. So I'm sure we'll try to do our due diligence on all of it. Please, we should think that.
I think we have time. I know we're a little over, but we take one more question comment back there to wrap things up? Is that okay with you two?
For sure. I just wanted to check in and see if it's clear that there's a need for this many storage units in this city. Do you expect that they will all be filled? Do you, the two of you, have that information?
I can tell you that when we built Williston is a good example. It filled up faster than any other facility in our history of building. We've got 400 projects going on right now in the country. That location filled up faster than any one.
And how many, what's the number again?
We have about 1,000 units in Williston.
Right, how many are gonna be?
542.
Yeah, and I just want to say how much I appreciate comrades here and neighbors really speaking, I think, eloquently. I'm just really also struck by how much housing we need in this city. And I know when Peter and I were waiting for a place to be finished, had to leave one place because it was sold. We did indeed use a storage unit for 5 months, I think. I understand that there can be some need. But it's really, really difficult to think about storing our stuff when we're not housing our people.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. I think we're at time. It sounds like you're in the really early phases, so maybe we can stay in some conversation. You can share information and plans as they evolve, and you're welcome to come back and do that. We'd really appreciate it. So great, thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thanks for having me.
It's tricky.